We're going to do it together. We have to unify, put our petty differences aside, who's more powerful, who has the information, and let's work together in lockstep. You, the people, your stories are fascinating, they're real, they're organic, and they're the truth.
Right now with Ann Vandersteel. Good evening and welcome to Right Now with Ann Vandersteel. This is going to be an unusual show because, as you know, Michael Jan and I have been working diligently on Operation Burning Edge, and I want to give you some more perspective with a former Navy SEAL by the name of Matt Bracken, a really extraordinary young man who has matured and become quite an author, a prolific writer, in fact, authoring many books. We'll touch on some of those this evening, but I wanted to bring him on tonight because, well, a lot of reasons. He's quite intelligent, but he's also quite knowledgeable on an area that is coming into the focus right now, right here in southeastern United States. You've heard about the Haitians that are coming ashore in the boats beaching right here in Martin County, Palm Beach County, not even far from where I live. And while we have seen this activity before in the past, particularly as drug runners are trying to escape Coast Guard, Customs and Border Patrol, etc. Now we're seeing it because, of course, there has been a government overthrow. There's been a coup in Haiti, and a gentleman by the name of Barbecue, who's a cannibal, is basically running things over there. That country has been under duress for many years, and it goes back, of course, to the Clinton Foundation and their attempts at restoring that country back to greatness, when instead they were doing the exact opposite. They were taking everything they possibly could from Haiti, including their children. That has been reported and reported and reported. That is not the focus of tonight's show. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the actual area around Southeast Florida. Are we going to see the Haitian flotilla bombarding our shores? We're going to talk about the questionable timing of this governmental coup and the lawlessness that has overtaken Haiti. And we're going to talk about it with Matt Bracken. He's an author. He's a former Navy SEAL. He was born in Baltimore, Maryland, graduated from the University of Virginia with a degree in Russian studies, and again, commissioned in the U.S. Navy in the NROTC program at the University of Virginia. Then he graduated from the Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL training class. He was class number 105 in Coronado, a beautiful part of the world. Also seeing the, well, should we say the siege at the border, the invasion that has been orchestrated by the United Nations, funded by the American taxpayer. And of course, they're partners in crime, these public-private partnerships of these non-governmental organizations, which the team at Operation Burning Edge has been focused on diligently. I hope you enjoy this discussion with Matt Bracken. I think you'll find it quite enlightening. And if you live in South Florida, you're going to want to pay close attention because, as you know, the Haitians do come up on shore from time to time. But perhaps there is another strategy in play. And could it be that our U.S. government is going to be facilitating this? Tune in.
The Democrat open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
Well, Matt Bracken, as my good friend and colleague, and yours as well, Michael Yon always says, you're the only SEAL he trusts and the only SEAL he likes. And that says a lot because Michael Yon is extremely selective, not too dissimilar from the SEAL selection program that you went through. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you on tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think you want to tell Sean Ryan that, but
probably not. I guess we could probably add Sean Ryan to that list.
Right.
Although Michael has always prefaced the only SEAL he has respect for is you, and he's said that for as long as I've known him.
I want to make clear, I was not career because I went to the University of Virginia with an NROTC scholarship. So I owed them the time. I never was planning, oh yeah, I want to be a military officer for, at the age 22, it looks like the rest of your life. 20 years, the rest of your youth, right?
Right.
And I saw on the summer cruises that I couldn't fly because I didn't have 20/20 vision at that time. That was a iron rule.
Right.
And I on the summer cruises, you spend time in submarines and on ships, and the ensign surface warfare officers, that just looked like a brutal, miserable life. It really did.
Yeah.
They sleep in their uniforms. You know, if they take their shoes off to sleep, that's like really a good break for them.
Yeah.
They don't have enough hours in the day. They're all on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Then I saw these guys in shorts with blue and gold T-shirts and jungle boots going up on the ship. And I said, who are those guys? And they said, they're the SEALs. And I said, well, that's what I'm going to do. Right. They looked like they were having a lot more fun than the ship drivers.
So it was about a fashion. It was about a fashion statement.
No, it was about a freedom state. You have to understand, this is out in San Diego, so I'm going on one of these summer cruises.
Right.
And the Marines on a amphibious ship, a Navy like LPD, landing platform dock. It's got like a flight deck and a well deck for like landing crafts out the back. And the Marines from Camp Pendleton were going onto the ship like Egyptian slaves. They have to carry everything they're going to have for the next 6 months on their back in one trip. Their Alice backpack, their sea bag, if they've got a guitar, a saxophone, so they all look like, you know, how ants can carry like 10 times their weight.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going up this long gangway. Literally, it looked like Egyptian slaves. And then I saw this little group. They came in their own steak truck, like steakside truck, with their own cargo container. They're like whistling up the ship, and a crane comes over, picks up their cargo container. All their stuff's in cargo containers. These guys are just wearing cool little hats, T-shirts and shorts. And I'm just saying, who are those guys? How come they have like this, something about them? The rest of all the sailors and Marines are in awe of them. So
Right.
like, they're the SEALs. Don't mess with the SEAls, right?
Right.
And I said, well, that looks like a lot more fun than being a surface warfare officer for 4 years on the verge of a nervous breakdown the whole time.
Wow.
Right? Your hair going prematurely gray. Every SWO officer from that era will know exactly what I'm talking about. I have great respect for them, but it did not look like a fun way to spend 4 years. So I just decided, you know, this is when I was back at the University of Virginia. When I was a senior, I put on what they called the dream sheet, like your 1, 2, 3 choices. I put buds, buds, buds. And my attitude was, I'll make it or I'll be dead, right?
You'll make it.
And in those days, I was very fortunate to get a slot. Now, I mean, it's so popular that even like at the Naval Academy, they're only going to take a limited number and let them and allow them to go to the buds track as an officer, right? But when I got out to training, I made it in class 105 in 1979. I made it through training. I never had a gimp chit. I wasn't like a superstar on like winning the obstacle course fastest times, but I made all my times. I never missed an evolution. I was very rugged and durable in that way, which was fortunate. But, you know, then I went to the East Coast SEAL teams. They still had UDTs also, which is another part of the whole story. But yeah, I just wanted to spend my 4 years doing something very exciting. If I had come into the Navy as an enlisted man, I might have made a career, because you can be a shooter, an operator for your whole career as an enlisted man.
Right.
You know, as a chief, you are still a shooter, or you can be. You know, you'll transfer to different positions, but as an officer, after you've been an O3, a lieutenant, and you've had a platoon, you're going to cycle through a long period of being an operations officer, doing a Pentagon tour, a liaison tour with some other foreign or American unit. And you're not going to be a shooter anymore. It's only in the movies where George Clooney is like a colonel with a gun, right? That's not reality.
Right.
The reality is the operators, the shooters are the young guys, you know, the lieutenants. And once I was done with that, which was actually Beirut in 1983, that era, my 4 years were up, and I wanted to build boats and go sailing and do other adventurous things. So I am not somebody that did a career, and you know, I have great respect for those that do. And it's interesting, out of the ensigns in my buds class, you know, they all made captain, because it was just going into that period when Naval Special Warfare was you know, really blooming, and their budgets were going, you know, through the roof. They were expanding, more teams were created. So yeah, it was a great time of my life, and I stayed in reserves after that. But yeah, I don't have the like Pentagon experience. I don't have the perspective of the 06, you know, the Navy captain or the Army colonel.
Right.
Because I've been out for that.
Well, you've been out, and you haven't you never gave up on the sea. I guess, is the sea a love of yours, the ocean?
Yeah, I was raised in Baltimore, and I was, you know, going to camp and sailing and out on the Chesapeake Bay summers, or Ocean City, Maryland. You know, I was always a water kid. You know, I was always a water kid. So I knew that any aspect of SEAL training that involved water, that would be just aces for me. You know, and one of my sisters was big into sailing. She lived with her husband on a sailboat in the Caribbean. So even in high school, I was like flying to the Caribbean. I did a transatlantic when I was in college, and in 1976 on a 33-foot wooden boat. So I was always had that experience, and it actually comes around to sort of influence what I know about special warfare now, because just as an anecdote, in the early 80s, when we were just before Beirut, we were doing around the same time we were doing the Grenada operation, if you recall.
Yeah.
And even before the military went into Grenada, it was obvious that things were going to a head there, because the Cubans were building a runway, and we had a medical school there. So I actually asked my commanding officer, out of my own pocket, I would go to Grenada as a tourist, that I could swing this whole thing, because I'm the right age as the medical students. I would have, you know, cover for action. I would know you know, I wouldn't stand out, and I would be able to do a beach recon of the whole island. You know, one-man beach recon. That was one of the things that we did, where, you know, you swim out from the beach perpendicular to the beach, and you're getting the beach gradient and what's under the water, what obstacles are there, coral reefs, things like that. And they said, no need. We're not going to do that. And I would have done it on my own time, on my own leave time. I would have paid my own way. I just wanted an official sanction, you know, to do this. Right. And it was like, no way. Okay, so Grenada happens. SEAL Team 6 was parachuted in what they called a rubber duck in those days, where a C-130 rolls a big a Zodiac on a pallet out the back of the C-130 with a big cargo chute. And then the frogmen, you know, waddle out after it with their flippers on to meet up with this rubber boat, get rid of the parachute and the pallet, and go to shore. Well, in this case, it wasn't even going to shore. They were just doing an administrative link up with an American destroyer. They were just getting the SEALs to Grenada to link up with a destroyer, because this was SEAL Team 6, like the you know, the Black SEAL team, right? DevGru. Those guys jumped out. It wasn't the Chesapeake Bay. They practice on the Chesapeake Bay. When it really is, you know, time for the mission, I could have told them, it was like, you know, you're going to die. It's going to be 15 to 20 foot waves and a 30-knot wind. This is not the Chesapeake Bay.
Right.
So this wasn't even a combat jump. They were just trying to link up with an American warship. They were never seen again. They went out of the C-130, gone. Boat, crew, gone. I could have told them that. They had nobody as a civilian sailor, they had nobody that told them up in Dam Neck, Virginia, in Norfolk, don't try that. Even today, the Red Sea SEALs that drowned, the word is that it was a sea state issue again. They're told, board that dhow. Well, we can't board it in a sea state where the waves are 6 feet or 5 or 6 feet. Do it anyway. You've got waves going up and down the side of a very large sailboat, motorized sailboat. You're trying to hook a ladder on it to climb up the ladder. People died because they disregarded sea state.
Yeah.
It's all hypothetical when you're in San Diego or Norfolk. And this is where, this whole thing we're talking about now, the Haiti operation.
Yeah.
People with actual area knowledge need to be involved, because when it's just hypothetical, people are thinking of the Chesapeake Bay, or Virginia Beach, and they're not thinking about this. It's like training for Everest in the Appalachians.
Right.
And then you drop the guys off in Mount Everest and you wonder why they all perished. But I have a lot of area knowledge, and that's why I'm making the rounds.
So this is why I want to talk to you today, Matt, because, as Michael Jan has informed me, you're a very serious man, and clearly you have been a serious player. You've written books traveling around the world. In fact, this one right here, Doomsday Reef, come along for your ride of your life with Matt Bracken. I mean, this is an extraordinary tale. You have a website, enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. Give us just a little bit of an overview of your experience traveling in this part of the world, which clearly on the map here.
Well, it's really amazing. It's just amazing to me how these things are all intertwined.
Right.
My last novel is several years old. My last, full novel, this one, Red Cliffs of Zerhoon. I was sort of blackpilled in terms of like, why write another novel? I don't want to write Cormac McCarthy, The Road 2.0, right? Mm-hmm. It's too gloomy. It's too depressing. When I went with Michael Jan to Darien in January of 2023, it was very transformative for me. Obviously, being with Michael was an amazing experience, but when we were out with the Guna Indians, mm-hmm. I was looking at a culture being destroyed, by this mass invasion, just trampling their jungle, polluting their drinking water streams, etc. But I was looking at a culture that it's like, if Russia, China, and America obliterated themselves, the Guna Indians would keep right on living. They right. make their own medicine, they make most of their own clothing. I mean, they are really, really at peace with nature that's now being overrun by this invasion. But it gave me a perspective of life would continue on the other side of a collapse. And I started writing after that. And my story takes me right through the area that's now this whole Haiti operation. I have sailed, through the Bahamas, the Windward Passage, Jamaica. I've seen Cuba and Haiti, from a sailboat. And now this whole thing that's happening is like kind of in my stomping grounds, mm-hmm. in my, an area where I'm pretty knowledgeable.
So one of the things that strikes me is this meme you sent me, and clearly this is what we see a lot of in the Darien Gap. Michael, myself, and many others who've gone down there. You see what, the United Nations, what Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, what Doctors Without Borders, UNICEF, American Red Cross, name the NGO. They'll tell you that these are refugees. But what your eyes will tell you is that this is an invasion. And it's never a bunch of women and children coming across through the Darien Gap. That is extremely dangerous. Are there women and children? Yes. But predominantly what you see, and you see moving in the middle of the night, escorted by cartel, are men of fighting military age. And, to me and to anybody else with clear eyes, that's an invasionary force. And the methods and the money that is being used to get these people here is quite extraordinary, and the players that are involved is quite extraordinary. And the timing of this Haitian uprising and the overthrow of their government, to me, is quite extraordinary, extraordinary, as in terms of I am suspicious about the timing. Like, I just find it highly unusual that they chose now to just get rid of their government and figure out, make themselves available to NGOs for rescue. Or, as many of us have thought, they might jump in their boats like they did in the past and come across the water in sailboats and beach themselves in Florida. And we still have Haitians, by the way, that, beach themselves in Florida, but we're not seeing this armada coming yet.
But it's pretty rare. What I think we're going to see elements of Darien, and we're going to see elements of the 1980s Haitian migrations, but not so much. And we're going to definitely, I think, see elements of the main Tunisia to Italy boat lift operation. In the Tunisia operation, and that blue boat picture you put up as a classic example, they don't plan to take that rubber boat from Tunisia to Italy. They have a German or other NGO ship that's waiting just 5 or 10 miles off the coast of Tunisia. So all they need to do is get 5 or 10 miles out, and then they are quote unquote rescued, put on a 100-foot ship, and then they're taken to Italy, to Lampedusa. There's even like a Lampedusa analog in this invasion, a little island here called Navassa that's actually an American island right here. So all they've got to do is go 30 miles to this little island, Navassa, and then we'll have to rescue them. And the other thing that's different, it's the same but in a way worse than the Mediterranean invasion. In the Mediterranean invasion, the boats actually need to have a motor to get that 5 or 10 miles offshore to where they can quote unquote be rescued. In the Haitian situation, there's a trade wind blowing to the west. All they need to do is get a mile offshore, and the wind will just carry them towards Cuba or Jamaica, and then they're going to need to be rescued. So there'll be NGO airplanes out saying, "This is so terrible. Look, there's 100 men on that little rubber raft. Coast Guard, go rescue them." They are not going to put them back on the shore in Haiti. They will say it is too dangerous. So essentially 11 million people in Haiti will be considered at risk and must be brought to America, at least until the election, depending on what happens after the election. But they're going to be taken to Guantanamo, to Gitmo, that you can see on the map. All of the, how close it is from Haiti to Gitmo, or to that little island, Navassa. Once they're in Gitmo, it's going to be very difficult, unlike in Darien, where you could put up the DJI drones and actually film, this is the camp that Mayorkas went and set up, China Camp San Vicente. Instead of, there will be no drones over Gitmo.
No.
Gitmo will be a black site. So if every day thousands of Haitians are quote unquote rescued and ferried to Guantanamo, they're going to be put on 737s and flown to Indiana and Idaho every night. So the Gitmo camp is not going to be meant to expand to hold 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. The Gitmo camp is going to be a turnstile camp like the Darien Gap camps. It's just going to be a place where, you get rehydrated, do your laundry, and wait for your airplane ride to America. And it'll be a black site. There's an air defense identification zone around the whole place. It's Cuba and America. So nobody's going to be even flying like a Cessna charter close enough to see what's going on there. You'll have a fighter jet escort you out of the area very fast, or a Black Hawk helicopter. So it's going to be a black site, and the airplanes are going to be rolling flying out of Guantanamo every night to every state in America. That is what I see coming.
Right. Well, what I find interesting is the fact that, Gitmo has been under expansion. I was talking about this with Michael Yan recently about the, let me just see if I can get this up here for everybody. I was talking about with Michael Yan recently the fact that Gitmo has actually undergone an expansion, and it actually started under Trump, which I find rather interesting also, Why can't I find this article? Here it is. Sorry. Pentagon to expand Gitmo after Trump orders it remain open. This goes back to February of 2018. And New York Times has published a $425 million expansion in the medical facilities as recently as 2022. So there has been a major expansion. I believe this has been, in certain news circles has been fairly mainstreamed out there. People are aware of this. But, you are making a case now for the reason this expansion was done was that, they knew we were going to need places to deal with people. I mean, it's almost as if they knew Haiti was going to go upside down at some point. But the timing of this is very suspect to me. Do you think there's any legitimacy that this was a planned
absolutely.
overthrow for this time?
It's not actually. It's more like a planned abdication. I mean, Haiti is a place where it's always 2 degrees below boiling over. So all you have to do is stir in a little more heat, put a little more heat under the pot, and it boils over. So Haiti is like low hanging fruit for the UN global migration plan. It can be turned up at any time. It looks like they can't count on Biden being reelected. I know that many people, Emerald Robinson, many others, believe there either won't be an election or Biden will get 150 million votes next time, right? I mean, just something ridiculous, but will be arrested for talking about it. Haiti is available to ramp up at any time, and you can't send people back. There's no safe port facility to tie up a Coast Guard ship and push the people down the ramp. They're going to all come to America, and as soon as they figure out that if they drift downwind, they'll be rescued, taken to Gitmo, and then flown to America from a secret, essentially a black site, because there'll be no witnesses, no camera crews. This is going to happen. And the reason we're doing this show is to try to prevent it by raising awareness before this trickle becomes a flood.
Mm-hmm.
Last week there's in the news, DeSantis is forming up like his state guard as opposed to the National Guard, trying to stop people from getting to Florida. But the direct Haiti to Florida route is going to be minimal to nothing.
Right.
Only the wealthy gangsters that can afford a big power boat are going to make that run. In the 80s, the run was from the north coast of Haiti to the Bahamas, and then hoping to be rescued by the Coast Guard. Like if you have 500 Haitians standing on an island with no water, a desert sandbar, clearly they have to be rescued, that or they'll perish, right?
Right.
But the new method is just going to be drift downwind, get picked up and taken to Guantanamo, and then on to America. They're not going to repatriate them to Haiti. I was watching Todd Bensman on Mike Ferris's Coffee and a Mic this morning.
Yeah.
And obviously Todd Bensman's another subject matter expert. And he's talking about this Guantanamo thing. Also, they won't be repatriated to Haiti until there is an invasion. And America has no taste going into an election to send, thousands of Marines to Haiti,
right,
to pacify it. This idea of sending Kenyans is the craziest idea in the world.
Right.
And it's insulting to our intelligence. My comparison would be, there's a revolution in East Timor, and they're Asians, so we'll send South Koreans.
Right.
Because they're Asians.
Some of the concern is that we have in our own countries that we do have, and this is straight from General Flynn in conversations with Jan and myself, that we've got 7 divisions of Chinese in this country already, but the amount of Chinese that have come in.
And obviously, the more tied down our elite mobile forces, like a Marine amphibious brigade, or battalions, that's just tying us up in a million small wars. But
yep. That's right.
I saw the Eric Prince interview, which was fantastic. You have to have if you're doing anything in Haiti, it has to be French speakers.
Right.
It has to be people with tropical Caribbean French-speaking police experience and military experience. Eric Prince was suggesting going to Quebec and recruiting from Quebec. it's more important that they speak French and have a cultural affinity than that they both have black skin. The black skin only helps for the the CNN, MSNBC news that they don't see white soldiers oppressing blacks, quote unquote.
Right.
But sending Kenyans will be an absolute disaster. The Kenyans do not speak French. The Kenyans are from East Africa. The Haitians 300 years ago were from West Africa. They literally have less in common than Koreans and Cambodians.
Right.
It's insulting to think only somebody of their racial group can go there. It'll be a disaster. It'll be just on a path on the way to sending the Marines in anyway.
Yeah, well, honestly, Matt, this is just more examples of the quotes elite and their disdain for the people. They're the ultimate racists when they think they can just slap somebody of same color into a situation and they don't realize it's a square peg in a round hole. They have zero understanding.
It's 100% plan to fail.
Exactly.
Only at the most idiotic State Department, airy-fairy, level would anybody believe that because they're black, Kenyan troops will work in Haiti.
Right. Speaking of the State Department.
If anything, the Kenyans will take advantage of the situation. They're like low-paid, low-skilled troops.
Right.
At the platoon level, they'll be out in villages doing bad things to women, stealing what they can. I mean, they sent troops into Haiti from, I think, Nepal. Was it Nepal? Central Asia, and it led to a typhoid outbreak, in their water because they had different germs flowing into their streams that they drank from, if you can imagine. But this is a disaster unfolding, and short of sending a major American military force, it's just going to get worse. And nobody wants to send a major American force. And anybody that gets on a raft and floats downwind, anybody that gets on a raft is going to need to be rescued.
Yeah.
They will not be dropped by helicopter back on a mountain in Haiti. They will be taken to Gitmo and they will wind up in Alabama and in California. We know what they do now.
Yeah. Well, again, it's the same powers that be, right? You've got the United Nations, they're well-funded NGOs, and let's not forget the United States of American taxpayer has the Federal Reserve printing money to fund the UN, and we're paying the interest on that money that gets printed. The UN then funnels that money to their favorite NGOs. And now, we've got the State Department also being quite duplicitous in all of this. And when you look at information like this, and this is what I find stunning, let me just pull it up here. I just had it right here. This is directly out of the State Department, the Safe Mobility Initiative. Take a look at this from the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration. The Safe Mobility Initiative facilitates expedited refugee processing via the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, USRAP, and provides information and/or referrals to humanitarian parole, family reunification, and labor pathways through mobilidadsegura.org and the Safe Mobility offices in, wait for it, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and Ecuador. This is, to me, another definition of what a refugee is. Just like our own agencies, Matt, have redefined what a vaccine is to include gene modification, an experimental gene modification at that. It's just another egregious example, in my humble opinion, of our government warring against the American people and against the people around the world.
It's not ridiculous and it's not unbelievable because it's happening. So it's terrible, but it's not unbelievable because it's happening. I mean, just the COVID thing, which would be another whole show. The Nuremberg Code specifically forbids what they did for the last 3 years, coercing people to take an experimental concoction, not a vaccine. You at the threat of being fired from your job or losing your pension. This is, we hung Nazi doctors for this.
Right.
And this was done, terrible in the camps in Nazi Germany, that it was done with hundreds, maybe thousands of people, subjects of medical experiments. This was done to millions, if not billions of humans for a purpose that is very evil. And so when you look now at our State Department, when they have this whole branch called like the Welcome Corps, where they're recruiting lefties to not put them necessarily in your house, but to like work with NGOs in your town to flood them in through your town. This is like a traitor corps.
Yeah.
I mean, Mayorkas himself, it just blows my mind. Mayorkas essentially would be considered a general or a SES, senior executive service level member of the UN Global Migration Corps, if you looked at it that way.
Sure.
How, as a board member of HIAS, right?
Right.
How do you go from being a general leading the invasion to leading the Department of Homeland Security? I mean, this is like the British hiring Rommel, you know, to be a British general, or
Right.
Guderian. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's mind-blowing that a general of the UN invasion laterally transferred to become the head of the Department of Homeland Security. And that's why these guys can lie with aplomb. They can go to Congress and say the sky is green and has purple polka dots with a straight face, because they see themselves as soldiers of this globalist world migration force. And the
That's
Congress that are questioning them, Republicans in Congress, are just old rube, backward nationalist hillbillies that you can lie to, because the supreme goal is this leveling of the world. There will be no difference between Haiti and Indiana, because it will be the same everywhere. That's their theoretical goal. But I'll tell you, another aspect of this Haitian thing, the smart Haitians have already left. The brain drain in Haiti
Like Venezuela, like the Venezuelans.
I lived in South Florida. You live in South Florida.
Yep.
It's not a surprise to see a Haitian nurse or even a Haitian doctor or real estate agent. The professional Haitians
Yep.
got out in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. The ones that are left have no means and very low intelligence on average. I'm sorry, it's brutally frank, but Haiti at this point is almost beyond relief, in the sense that the land has been despoiled, the topsoil has run into the ocean. They have 11 million people without a sewer pipe in the whole country.
Right.
You know, or a mile of highway. So if the smartest people gave up on their own country, their doctors, their engineers, they said, I'm not staying here. It's hopeless. They moved to Florida 20, 30, 10 years ago.
Right.
Even if I saw the interview that Tucker just did with a former prime minister of Haiti. Oh, we need elections. The elections will solve it. In a country where the average IQ is under 70, the man who wins is the guy that says, I'll give everybody a house and a car.
Right.
He beats the guy that just says, I'll give everybody free beer. That's the level of an election in a country like that. It is not capable of self-rule. I'm very sorry to say that, but the proof in the pudding is that the Haitians that could have fixed Haiti
Are gone.
gave up and fled,
Yeah.
including that former prime minister. He doesn't live in Haiti, right? He's living the high life in Florida somewhere.
Right.
So if he had said to Tucker, I am calling for this Haitian diaspora of professionals to return to their home, you know, to their mother country to save Haiti, I would have had some respect for him. But he didn't say anything about that. The people who could save Haiti are now living in Florida and want nothing to do with Haiti. So why should we send, you know, Americans or Kenyans or Canadians? The people who know Haiti and could fix Haiti have already given up on Haiti. That's a fact.
Does the United States have any responsibility in trying to reverse the damage that has been done in Haiti? I mean, vis-a-vis the Clinton Foundation?
Our involvement with Haiti goes back, you know, you could say right to their original slave revolt, because one of the things that they point to, you can't say it's been imperialism, right? Because they threw out the colonial masters, you know, 220 years ago, massacred all the whites, virtually all the whites, down to babies. But then they were kind of embargoed in the sense like the Cuban embargo. This is their perspective. Nobody would trade with Haiti because they had done this slave revolt. So through first half of the 19th century, they were pretty much on their own, left to their own devices. And obviously that didn't help them. They had been the wealthiest colony in the Americas before the slave revolt. So the country was very rich. It's on the downwind side of Hispaniola, so it's very rich. But now the soil's gone. You know, the runoff has just been terrible. And I mean, we had the Marines occupy Haiti for 20 years, built an army, tried to raise a professional army and civil service corps. As soon as the Marines left, it's Baby Doc, it's Papa Doc, it's the Tonton Macoute death squads. I mean,
it's barbecue.
The proof of the hopelessness of the Haiti situation. I hate to be so black-pilled on Haiti, but it's like talking about Somalia, essentially. Yeah. Anybody says, oh, I've got a great plan for Somalia. Look at all the Somalians that are in Minneapolis. Why don't they go back to Somalia? They love it so much. You're the most educated. You've got the insights of the world. You could save Somalia. They're not talking about going back to Somalia. The Haitians in Florida that are professionals don't even want to think about going back to live in Haiti.
No.
Unlike, and this is different. And this is different, for example, than the Cuban diaspora. There are Cubans all over Florida that would welcome the day communism is really overthrown. It'll be a difficult process because there'll be like property claims and things like that. But the Cubans in Florida still would love to, be in Cuba.
I'm sure they would. It's a beautiful country with beautiful beaches.
And it hasn't been ruined. It has, I mean, in the sense that the trees are all cut down.
Right.
I mean, you have an economy where you're cooking on wood, making charcoal. That's why you can see the border from 30,000 feet between Haiti and Dominican Republic, because one side is deforested. And when these mountainous regions are deforested, the topsoil runs down and it doesn't come back. That changes something called albedo, ALBEDO, which is the reflectivity of a surface area. So for example, in Darien, if the Chinese chop down all the big tropical hardwoods,
and they are,
when the Darien is deforested and the water runs off, the topsoil runs off, they won't be catching the clouds to fill the Gatun Lake to run the Panama Canal.
Correct.
Right. I mean, Greece and Lebanon used to be covered with forests. The Greeks, to build one war galley, would require 100 acres of trees to be cut down to build one of those giant Ben-Hur war galleys, and they would last 10 years before the worms ate them up. Well, those trees never came back to Greece. Greece was forested. Now it's rocky. Haiti is now deforested. It's hard to imagine. You can't. What are you going to do? Airlift topsoil? I mean, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
But the solution is not to bring 11 million Haitians to America. But that's what they'll try to do. That's what they'll do.
Well, and they have the playbook that they've laid out for us right here with the Declaration of North America. I mean, they published this back in January of 2023. I brought this up numerous times on my show, on other shows, but it's signed between three presidents, Obrador, Biden, and Trudeau, Canada, Mexico, and USA, to basically homogenize us into one region. And they call us a region. They want to fortify the region's security. And they want to use it through their 6 pillars of diversity, equity, inclusion, climate change, and the environment. Yeah.
Number one, number two.
Right. These two things that we've had ramrodded down our throat through corporate America and government. It's just unbelievable. They feign competitiveness, but they talk about it right here: migration and development, health and regional security. And they go through this document breaking down what their DEI looks like, right? Focusing on providing marginalized communities opportunities for their full, equal, and meaningful participation in our democracies and economies. Well, we're a republic. We're not a democracy. Let's start there. And this part kills me. And I know you've seen it, Matt. In partnership with indigenous peoples, we will promote innovative and sustainable solutions that honor traditional knowledge, foster indigenous-led growth and drive job creation. Well, when you were in the Darien Gap, as was I, did you see any indigenous farming, or did you see them powering motorboats, taking human beings up and down rivers as they were basically capitalizing on weaponized human migration and abandoning their original their business?
This is another form of destruction in a human capital way, comparable to chopping down all the trees and changing the albedo reflectivity so that you no longer catch rain clouds.
Right.
They take Indians that have lived in harmony with nature, and the temptation is just so great. You can make 5 times more money by cutting down these hardwood trees to make these giant pirogue canoes with the outboard motors on them. And this then becomes a new engine, an economic engine, an economic paradigm that develops its own. It's like a hurricane. Once it's spinning, it develops its own dynamic that wants to continue. You have bus routes. I mean, you have bus lines that have now have hundreds of buses running. You have motels springing up and people selling the boots and the packs. This becomes its own economic engine. And it's very hard that at this point, the people profiting from it, it's like trapping water rushing past a mill with a paddle wheel, the water wheel. You're creating money from this flow, so you don't want to stop the flow. So the children of these Indians are now like in cahoots with these gangsters and drug dealers. They're harmed in terms of being criminalized. And it develops its own. It's like a new river flowing. This migrant path becomes a self-generating system that in itself will become hard to turn off because so many people are benefiting economically from it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what we see happening. And they use doctrines like this and language that sounds like it's going to benefit the world, but in fact, all it is a cover for them and a smokescreen to go in, create debt by loaning debt into these, quotes, third world, still developing countries. Why is it they're still developing 50 years later? I'd like to know the answer to that. They are sitting on riches, untold riches in a lot of these countries. Look at El Salvador, for instance, that can mine Bitcoin for free because of the volcano energy underground, right? They're able to take that and translate it into energy to mine Bitcoin, and they've made that their national currency, and they're doing great in El Salvador. Bukele's gotten rid of MS-13, but the other countries who are financially dependent into this debt slave society created by the Federal Reserve and the central bankers and the Bank of International Settlements aren't. They're fully beholden to this debt slave monster that they keep swallowing every single day. And while we broadcast, our government will broadcast messages about diversity and climate improvements, they're doing the exact opposite. Everything that's in that document, the exact opposite is happening. How do we stop the cycle? What do we do?
Well, in just in terms of Haiti, I think that the Darien, it's some progress is being made. Michael has been the point man on this.
Right.
Everybody else, everybody has been taken there by Michael. It's amazing, right? Laura Loomer, Brett Weinstein, Jordan Peterson would have gone, but that was the week that the Canadian Supreme Court said, you got to get your mind reeducated. That was the very week. Everybody was saying, well, the Supreme Court certainly won't say I need to get reeducated, but they did. And that's why he couldn't go to Darien with Brett Weinstein and Chris Martenson, 2 of the smartest people around. So you've got a Michael Yon taking a Brett Weinstein and Chris Martenson to the Panama Canal. You've raised this to another level of awareness.
Right.
So you've seen Panama starting to make signs about not forbidding, but limiting access of Doctors Without Frontiers and some of these other globalist NGOs.
Doctors Without Morals is what we prefer to call them.
But they're baby steps.
Right.
And people like Brett Weinstein have an ability coming at it from an evolutionary biologist point of view. When Michael saw that the Camp Clayton right there by the locks on the Panama Canal, which was the headquarters of the U.S. Army Southcom from the time of the canal construction, through Jimmy Carter until more recently, it's now the headquarters of the UN invasion.
Right.
Well, right. It's instead of an American flag in front of the headquarters at Fort Clayton, it's now the UN flag.
Tells
next
you
to a
everything you
Panama
need to
flag.
know. That says
And-
it. That says it all, Matt.
And
It
Brett
says it all.
Weinstein says in biology, this is called inversion.
Right.
And it's like it's not just like, oh wow, what a coincidence. It used to be the Army and now it's the UN. It used to be the US Army, now it's the UN invasion force. It used to be the building designed to protect America from an invasion from the South. Now it's the headquarters of the invasion from the South. He said in biology, that's inversion. It's like when you see parasitoid behavior in different animals, particularly like parasitic wasp, for example, will lay its eggs in a caterpillar,
Right.
and turn the caterpillar into a zombie that's just being feasted on by the baby wasps inside.
Right.
The caterpillar outwardly still looks like a caterpillar. It still waddles along, still tries to eat, but it's dying. And its last service is to release all these wasps. So Panama has gone from being, a healthy organism. Darien Gap is a block against South America, just foot traffic. Our army is right there to protect the canal, see who's crossing the two bridges. Now it's been taken over. It's like the wasps got inside. Now it's like a parasitoid wasp factory. It's an invasion factory. This inversion is much more than just a coincidence or like changing from a white light to a red light. This is an actual takeover from inside. And you can see it. It's happening in our own country. You have people like Mayorkas. I said he's a general of the invasion. How does the general running the invasion become the head of our Department of Homeland Security? Has to be seen as total treason. Has to be seen as treasonous behavior.
I would say it's definitely seen as treasonous behavior, Matt, except that after multiple FOIAs, we've now uncovered through Freedom of Information Act requests of the cabinet and of federal judges, district judges, sheriffs around. Nobody has proper oaths of office on file, starting with Mayorkas and Kamala Harris and the entire Biden cabinet. They do not have proper oaths of office, if you can even find their oath of office that has been signed. They may have put their hand on a Bible and sworn to something, but they certainly didn't do part 2 of 5 U.S.C. 3332, which is that signed declaration. It's not existent. So without part 1 and 2 together, you don't really have perhaps even treasonous behavior. I don't know if you can even define it as that, because they're not swearing an oath to us. To the foreign corporation, for sure they have.
At a most basic level, everybody knows by heart the first 2 amendments of the Bill of Rights. Most people probably have an idea of what the 4th Amendment is, something about search and seizure.
Right.
But there's something, Article 4, Section 4, actually literally called the Guarantee Clause. And the federal government guarantees to protect the states against invasion.
Right.
And they're not doing it. They are leading the invasion.
Correct.
This is an abrogation of the contract. When the EU came along, which nobody in Europe ever voted on. It was always like a council voting on things. There was never like a referendum. Let's give up our sovereignty to Brussels. That never happened. And when countries said no, did have referendums, they just said, forget you, and we'll try again in a year until we get an EU. Well, the Schengen Agreement was, you won't protect your internal borders because the EU will protect the whole external border. But it didn't. It's like Mayorkas and the DHS running the invasion into America, that Brussels is running the invasion into Europe. At a certain point, whether or not they signed an oath of office, if a president said, the hell with the First Amendment, the hell with the Second Amendment, we're putting people in jail for memes, we're going to take your guns, then you would be, what's the, Jefferson has a quote about, when the law is I'm losing my quotes here, I'm getting all mixed up on them, but if they've abrogated the treaty, if the treaty says we guarantee to protect you against an invasion, and they're running millions of hostile fighting age men into your country, we're not beholden to that Constitution anymore. If my example analogy is, if you're as a householder, if you signed a contract with a alarm company and a lock company, and they promise to protect your house, but instead they open the door and let the thieves in. Then they go to the police and say, you're not allowed to put locks on the door because you have a contract that we put locks on the door, but you didn't put locks on the door. You let the thieves in. And they're saying it doesn't matter. The contract says only we can put a lock on your door. Well,
That's
Florida,
right.
as far as I'm concerned, Florida, 10 other states, border states, other states, we're at the point of needing to do something more than just Abbott, WEF Abbott,
Yes.
or DeSantis. We need to start saying we're going to make our own camps. We're going to defy the federal government. We're going to say, federal government, if you're going to come and release these fighting age men, you're going to need to bring people with guns to do it, because
That's
we're
right.
going to put them on a boat back to Haiti,
That's
whether
right.
you like it or not.
Well, I stand with you. Thomas Jefferson said it best about the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And I think right now we are looking at a bunch of tyrants sitting up there in Washington, D.C., Matt, that clearly don't work for the people. They don't have an oath sworn to we the people. They are in a private corporation sitting up there. It's a foreign body in 10 square miles of the swamp. And, you know, we have been blinded by our success as a country. We have literally in 250 years done what no other country has ever been able to do. And that is because we were living under the illusion of freedom up until a certain point when they could completely monetize us to the amount that they have. And they have run amok with the monetization. They're bankrupt. The banks are bankrupt. Just anybody try and Zelle more than $3,000 to somebody in more than once in one day. They're limiting your transactions. If you want to get money out of the bank, you've got to go in, make an appointment, tell them how much. It's unbelievable how much.
Give them a reason.
Yeah. Oh, give them a reason. Who, why, where, how long have you known this person?
Yeah.
Did they tell you that? I mean, it's the 20 questions for me to pay the people that I owe money to in Panama for facilitating things for us to do burning edge when we're down there has been, I'm not talking a lot of money, like $1,000. You can't imagine what I've gone through to try and get one gentleman $1,000. And that's because he put money out on his credit card for us. We owe him the money. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, if there's a silver lining, and it's a grim silver lining, you know, things that can't continue won't. I mean, we are coming to the end of the financialization cycle.
Right.
Yeah. There's, you know, the derivatives side of financialization it's insanity. People are just basically people are kiting checks to themselves and to their friends.
That's right.
It can't last forever.
Nope.
My new book, because I didn't want to write another collapse book.
Right.
Too many and definitely not you know, a patriotic guy is out of town when the lights go out and he's got to walk through, you know, criminal zombie bandit territory to get home. That has been written 5,000 times. I don't care. I mean, we're way past that. So my book takes place 10 years after a collapse. How do people form a new economy when there's no money? You know, dollars are just for kindling fires.
Right.
You know, dollars have no meaning. There are no banks. Banks have all been closed, looted, burned. Nobody will admit they were ever a banker. If they were, they would keep it quiet. You know, there's no financial system whatsoever. The grid is down. There's no internet. Obviously, there's no Bitcoin. How do the new green shoots start coming out of the soil? So that's what my new book takes. You know, the subject matter is, how does a new economy form? And you know, so it's 10 years after all this.
Do you think BRICS will be foundational in this new economy with the asset-backed currencies that they're standing up? Because once we booted them from SWIFT, frankly, I think they got set free. I think they should be saying thank you.
If there is no total global collapse, if the collapse is restricted to, say, USA and Five Eyes,
right,
in terms of the financial system, the banks are all buying gold like crazy. I think they would like to move towards some gold backing or commodities backing. We are, and Putin is right, we have like shot ourselves in both feet by using the dollar as a weapon, because all it has done is teach people that you can't trust the American dollar. So move away from the dollar. And we're going to, and I think unless something even worse happens, like a grid down situation resulting from these tens of thousands of foreign spies, saboteurs, agents that are flooding in, they can take down our grid at any time.
Right.
We're looking at the wrong thing when we look at, like, how far can a Russian or a Chinese missile fly? they would be insane to do that. It comes with a return address. You see the silo open up in China or Russia, and we know just where it came from.
Right.
But if they give the code to their agents, they do 20 of these Metcalf, California attacks the same night.
Right.
That was the substation that was attacked, and a fiber optic trunk line miles away attacked at the same time. That was a proof of concept operation.
Oh, sure.
When they do 20 of them on one night and our power goes out, our cities will burn themselves down. You won't need to nuke them. Our cities will loot every store. No food will be coming in. It'll be cannibal scene in a week.
Yep.
Because the society, the social fabric has been destroyed. So our enemies are not going to fire missiles at us to destroy us. They're going to unleash the agents to take out our grid. And at the same time, take out dissidents, enemies of their country, et cetera, that are practically in hiding in America now, like the Chinese microbiologist lady. You know, she's got death threats constantly. Mm-hmm. So China, in a sense, already has these agents running around the country, you know, with the enforcement arm threatening people, putting up the equivalent of night letters, which is in Iraq or Afghanistan, a night letter is like when you wake up and there's a death threat nailed to your door, like you have 24 hours to leave or your children will all be killed, and they're not kidding. Well, that's what the Chinese, the freedom desiring Chinese are already getting, those kind of like bumps and brushes, you know, warnings like, we are ascendant and your government can't and won't protect you.
That's right.
When it gets to a certain level, China can just say, shut off their lights, turn off their grid.
Yeah, and that's coming. And anybody that you talk to knows it's coming. Everybody I've talked to knows it's coming. The question I have for the useful idiots who are allowing this to happen, for the Joe Bidens and the Ali Mayorkases and all of that, at what point do they not recognize that when the useful idiots below them are done, they're done too, because they're just useful idiots to these people who feel that they have claim to this land, mainly the CCP. They see their own DNA here vis-a-vis the land bridge from Siberia all the way through to Native Americans as descendants of Asians. And so they say that this land is their land. Forget the American Indians. It belongs to
the land belongs to those who will fight for it.
Exactly. But the useful idiots at the top don't see it that way. And
I'm trying to get a word out into usage. Genocide. It's a genocide psyop when every TV commercial has a mixed race couple.
Right.
The white man is invariably a doofus, embarrassingly stupid.
Yep.
Right. This is a genocide. They're trying to tell the Irish that the original Irish were black. I mean, they're like making documentaries about the Romans in England were black. This is a genocide. It's conditioning us not to even resist our own replacement and genocide,
right? To
just accept it passively as a massive demoralization operation.
It is.
But I think that if you project trends without looking at some of the bigger minefields out in front of the trends, you could say, yeah, the BRICS are probably going to be ascendant, and America will look like Argentina with nukes. But I think that there's a real risk of a global disaster, because for example, the fertilizer and the food that is shipped from country to country feeds nations. Nations like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, Nigeria, a long list of countries with like more than 100 million people cannot feed themselves if the global shipping industry builds up so much friction that it begins to shut down. Mm-hmm. That's what we're seeing with the Red Sea and the Panama Canal.
Right.
Is friction. It's like the brakes being applied.
Yeah.
And if there's a general kinetic war, even like say in the Middle East, shipping will virtually stop.
That's right.
Nobody is going to send ships across the Atlantic when they could be torpedoed. So countries, Haiti could be seen almost as not an isolated worst case example, but a leading indicator. There are many countries that can turn into Haiti very fast, like Bangladesh or Pakistan, if those ships full of grain don't come in. They do not feed themselves. And if the global shipping system breaks down, what happens to countries that can't feed themselves? Well, first they have giant revolutions, but the giant revolution doesn't create food. I agree with Michael. We're looking at possibly what he calls a gigacide. And you're going to need to be someplace where you have your own food and water and some security. Cities will not be safe.
No.
Cities will not, in any country, cities will not be safe.
Yeah, it's pretty, and it's the timeline on something like this is unknown. What's going to be the conditions are set. It's all there. All the
Yes.
conditions are ripe. What is going to be the exogenous factor or the spark that gets it to ramp up into a
Right.
hockey stick curve is unknown, and that time period of when that
But
happens
that's
is unknown.
I have a whole notebook when I was down with him of Michael Yanisms. And I have like pages of notes of Michael Yanisms. But he says, forget about sparks, it's conditions.
That's right.
You can throw lit flares into a rainforest all day long, they go out. You
Right.
throw a match into a dry prairie and it's a prairie fire.
Right.
Well, our conditions are set like the dry prairie.
That's right.
So it could be a financial disaster, a cyber attack. If the EBT system fails,
Oh my gosh.
if already people will just go into a supermarket, load up a shopping cart, and run out the door. They feel nothing immoral about that. They
No,
feel
not
they are
even.
owed the food.
That's right.
The new social contract is you feed me. So
That's right.
if the EBT system collapses, supermarkets will be looted. We've seen that in small examples. It becomes a panic within a few hours. Happened in Virginia a couple of years ago. EBT system goes down for a couple of hours and people are panicking at the stores.
That's right.
So,
And-
I mean, imagine if it's coast to coast.
Well, and Michael always says cannibalism will start within a week when there's no food. And it
Right.
will.
And
Especially when you're importing cannibals
and
from
this is-
countries that
right.
cannibalism exists. And it
So-
exists all over the world.
And it always will exist when people are starving to death. They don't just become, monks and decide to meditate till they perish.
Right.
So my book relates to another Michael Yanism. It's not like a well-crafted aphorism, this idea, but he said that the cannibalism ends when there's a new balance point, meaning it may be a 90 or 95% die-off. The 5% that are left don't need to eat humans anymore because enough natural plants are growing, and you can start looking for other forms of food.
Right.
But it could easily lead to, I think, like a 90% die-off. And that's my novel is taking place 10 years after this. People say, well, the money will be bullets or the money will be Bic lighters. The Bic lighters run out. You can't pay armies with bullets. Eventually, there has to be a new emerging economy, but it's not going to be with 300 million Americans.
Right.
It's going to be that fewer people will require less food. So other forms of food production will be adequate for the 30 million that are left. It's a great topic, isn't it? My wife loves hearing this. It's like she's ready to scream. But
Oh God. Well, you know what? I guess my husband probably can commiserate with her on it all. There's just some days when we go out to dinner with friends, he's like, can we not talk about any of that? Can we find something that's
know.
mindless? And somehow this always creeps back into the conversation somehow, some way. But
because we're living in reality, and that's
we're
why,
living in reality.
That's
Yeah.
why people that are very smart. I mean, on the COVID side, you have people like Dr. Peter Corey, talking about how they've been shut down. The leaders in their fields, gagged, disgraced, discredited. You deny the guy the ability to speak, and then you call him a crank after he's like written all the textbooks that are used in every hospital. And in the economic side, people like, and evolutionary biology, I mean, people like Brett Weinstein, Chris Martenson, these are serious thinkers.
That's right.
Yeah, and Chris Martenson is saying it's not enough to have like precious metals and a secure place to live. You got to be growing some food now. You got to be starting to think about growing your food. Chris Martenson could just be, a financial host guy talking about, the best way to benefit from your money in Wall Street.
That's right.
He could be just making, doing the regular financial gig.
Sure.
He's not.
And you know why? Because he's not a useful idiot. He understands
No,
what's at stake. And while he is totally prepared, and people like Weinstein and Mike Adams and others are hyper
right. Mike
prepared,
Adams. Mike Adams.
but at the end of the day, they can't. They have enough food to feed themselves, maybe a few people, but not the millions of people who aren't prepared. So
Right.
you can be all prepared as all you want, but at the end of the day, if everybody else around you or a good portion of people around you aren't, it becomes your problem too. Doesn't matter how much food you have stocked
It's
away.
like having a generator or solar panels all over your roof.
Right.
If you're the only one in your neighborhood that doesn't look like an Auschwitz survivor,
They're coming to your house.
it's pretty obvious who's got the food.
That's right. That's right. They're coming to your house, whether you want them or not. So it's in everybody's best interest to let everybody know, be prepared, and
Right.
help your neighbors understand the severity of this and help them get prepared. We joined a co-op because I want to have access to food and ammo and a whole bunch of other stuff with people who are of like mind, because we see what's coming. We
Yeah.
see what's coming. So Matt
Yeah.
Bracken, really an honor to speak with you. It's refreshing to have someone of your caliber and your expertise and your experience with global knowledge, depth and breadth the way you do, to be able to translate this whole picture of what's happening. The invasion at the southern border is so much more, and it has reverberations throughout the world. And America isn't the only one suffering from the economic collapse and the sovereign collapse of this country, because it's going to, again, reverberate around the world. We've witnessed it in Europe. And I think your point you made about the EU is really quite stunning, in the fact that we could go back 250 years to 1868 and talk about becoming the US, the United States, and becoming a member of that organization, which we were all Americans up until 1868, when they decided to, put us under the umbrella of the United States and make us US citizens. That was a massive blow to the sovereignty of the states at the time. And it's been, this fine balancing act between Article 4, Section 4 and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 under the 10th Amendment, right? States have rights. And so there's been this battle of, well, Big Brother's going to take care of us. Well, Big Brother is destroying us. So now it's up to us.
It's time for a governor to say, FBI, Border Patrol, you're not welcome.
Exactly.
You're supposed to protect us from invasion, not put people on buses.
That's right.
And if you're going to put people on buses instead of protecting the border, get out.
That's right. Amen. Matt Bracken, enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. You've got a plethora of great reading there. You're a valuable and knowledgeable resource.
If you get my books, I got all these books now, but if you get my books, you can, and you want them signed, you can get them from me. Big, thick books. Okay. They're not like these.
Go
are
to
not
your
like,
website.
Right. You can go to my website, and how to order them is there, like PayPal, checks. If you don't care about an inscription, then you can give Jeff Bezos half the money and get it from Amazon more conveniently, maybe. They're also on Audible and Kindle. But these are the only books that are going to last. The printed books will last when the power is out. The Kindle and audio books are just going to go poof into the ether.
That's right.
I recommend hard printed books.
I do too. Plus, I enjoy reading a book. It's easier on your eyes than it is trying to read online on a Kindle, on a phone, on an iPad, whatever. And like you said, they can always modify your books. What are you going to do about it if they decide to change what you've written in your book? They can change history online.
They can just delete it.
Down, exactly.
They can mass delete it off your Kindle. We've already seen that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you so much for taking the time with me today. I look forward to perhaps seeing you either in South Florida or wherever the next wave of Operation Burning Edge ends up. We're doing some recon in the Bahamas with respect to the Chinese over there, taking a look at some stuff, but looks like we need to get a little further south.
And it's really key to get out in front of this.
Yeah.
Not wait until waves are, planes are landing every night. We need to get out in front of it.
Yeah, we need to connect with Monkey Works, I think, and start
definitely
collaborating with them.
That's a resource.
That's
anywhere this happens, there'll be the tracks in the sky.
That's right. And he's tracking it, but we want to start providing him look over here intel.
Right. That's a really good resource. Yep. Good ally.
Yep. He's great. All right, Matt Bracken, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ann Vandersteel. I want to talk to you a little bit about your health. Part of my daily routine is to get up in the morning and get a little exercise on. If I have time for a mile or 7, doesn't matter. I get out the door every single day. It's important to get my body moving and get that oxygen flowing through my brains. What is also equally important is what I put in my body after I exercise. I rely on vandersteelhealth.com, where I have a delicious selection of superfoods and other supplements. But first and foremost for me are my superfoods. I have a delicious shake every single day. It is organic, all made in the United States of America, non-GMO, never processed before, dehydrated superfoods. And when they reconstitute with water, milk, or whatever juice you like, it makes a delicious, healthy, plant-based protein supplement. And I say supplement because, frankly, I use this as a meal replacement. This is what's helped me lose the last 20 pounds of COVID. I'm back down to my fighting college weight, fitting in my college clothes, and feeling better than ever. So go to vandersteelhealth.com and get your delicious superfoods. Get on the transformation program with us. It's a 30-day kickoff, and it will get your day starting out great. And watch the weight just fall off. Watch the energy increase, the brain fog lift, and of course, the ancillary benefits in your hair, skin, and nails. All these things, you are what you eat. Remember that. Go to vandersteelhealth.com.